Welcome back. Lindani Myeni's family has slammed findings by Hawaii prosecutors that his killing was justified. A South African-born rugby player was gunned down in April. Investigators have since concluded that no race injustice played a role in his shooting. Our New York correspondent, William Denslow, joining us to unpack these findings for us. He'll also weigh in on the tax crime charges against Trump Organization and its CFO. From South Africa, very good evening to you, William. We've heard time and time again of police brutality in the United States, a lot of it being racial, and the case, of course, coming against the victim. Is this just another one of those cases?
It's certainly seen as a great degree of frustration, considering the fact that recently we saw the legal team, Jim Bickerton and the legal team representing the Miyeni family, releasing more video that seems to show Lindani Myeni on several occasions apologising to those inside the house that he entered. That prompted Reverend Al Sharpton, a prominent civil rights activist here in the United States, to say that the case of Lindani Myeni's death was, quote, yet another sensational racialization and criminalization of an innocent, unarmed black man at the hands of the police. Now, we've heard from prosecutor Steve Alm out in Honolulu, Hawaii. He said that the shooting was justified. There will be no charges against the officers. He argues that the two officers involved in the shooting tried to use multiple non-lethal, non-deadly force methods before using their service firearms. The officer 1 acted in self-defense. Officer 2 was acting in defense of the officer, adding that there's no evidence that race played a role. We've heard a statement from Jim Bickerton, the Miyeni legal team, saying that essentially the whole premise of the prosecutor's argument is undermined by the fact that, according to the legal team, they ignored the first action of ordering an unarmed person to get on the ground. Of course, the legal team have reiterated time and time again that it was the police that didn't immediately identify themselves as law enforcement. Lindani can be heard on video saying, "Who are you? Who are you?" So the lawyers say that this is akin to terroristic threatening or kidnapping. The message from Jim Bickerton and the legal team is that this message from the prosecution in no way impacts their civil suit that's ongoing.
William, could it be said that the Hawaii prosecutors and Hawaii authorities in general are just trying to sweep this case under the carpet because they find it to not be significant enough for them to deal with as they should?
Well, the message is that this is an investigation that's been underway since April 14th and the death of Lindani Myeni, and that has been looked at very closely indeed. Of course, there's plenty of body cam footage from the officers, as well as the ring door cam footage as well. So this is something the prosecution have certainly taken into account in investigating all of this. And the message, though, from the legal team, Jim Bickerton and the associates that are handling the case as far as the Miyeni family are concerned, is that unless they take into account the fact that the law enforcement didn't introduce themselves properly, then their arguments from the prosecution about the actions from the officers is somewhat undermined. Of course, this civil suit is ongoing. They still want to see things like the release, and they still want to further investigate forensically what was on Lindani Myeni's cell phone, for example. That they say could provide further evidence as to whether Lindani Myeni was trying to access a temple in the local neighbourhood. We have heard from the homeowner's lawyer, Scott Browser, that said that according to the people that were at the home at the time, Mr. Miyeni never made any mention of trying to search a temple when he entered that building on April 14th. Bridget Bickerton, who is part of the legal counsel, says that the homeowners have changed their stories on occasion, and that doesn't go away from the fact that, as far as the legal team is concerned, the police's use of force was completely unjustified in their response to the actions undertaken by Lindani Myeni on April 14th.
William, just before I let you go, I just want to touch on the tax crimes that, of course, are involving the Trump Organization and its chief financial officer, Alan Weisselberg. It's obviously 15 counts that have now been put forward by the New York prosecutors, and this is a tax scheme that stretches back since 2005. The one question I suppose many would want to find out is, How does this affect Donald Trump himself?
That's certainly the big question, and it is significant considering the fact that this is an indictment brought against the Trump Organization, as well as the chief financial officer, Alan Weisselberg, who's been with the Trump Organization for close to half a century. The message from prosecutors here in New York is that this was a tax fraud scheme that lasted for 15 years. It's alleged that the CFO engaged in fringe benefits and tax evasion to the tune of $1.7 million. I've heard from Carrie Dunn, the general counsel for the DA, describing this as a sweeping, audacious, illegal payment scheme. Of course, the CFO has pleaded not guilty. The Trump Organization says that Weisselberg is being used as a pawn by the district attorney in a scorched earth effort to harm the former president. Donald Trump himself has said this is another example of a politically motivated witch hunt. But in answer to your question, well, interestingly, Weisselberg, as well as other Trump Organization executives, have been named in this indictment. Very interesting to see more whether who exactly those Trump Organization executives are. Could also expect this to not be the last bit of litigation seen in this ongoing legal battle between the Manhattan DA, the New York Attorney General's office, and Donald Trump and his family business. So expect this just to be seen as the first, potentially, of many charges brought against Trump and the business that he and his family have built.
All right, William, thank you very much. We'll leave it there. That is our New York correspondent, William Denslow.